Hello everyone, DJ here. Welcome to the channel. You know you're always welcome. Don't forget to subscribe. It doesn't cost you a penny, doesn't cost you a cent, doesn't even cost you a rupee. It's totally free. So please subscribe. It enables me to continue with my work. And the work today is I'm going to talk to you about gender identity. Now I know don't switch off. It is more than what I'm going to tell you about. So please continue listening. Cancer referrals have been missed and previous convictions overlooked because biological sex has been erased from official data on health, on crime and on education. A review has been conducted and that's what they found. The review was commissioned by the last Conservative government and released on Wednesday, 2 days ago, and found that the word gender started to replace sex in the collection of data in the 1990s. Who would have thought? And that for the past 10 years, robust and accurate data on biological sex has been lost. The study, led by Professor Alice Sullivan from University College London, investigated all public bodies and found the meaning of sex is no longer stable in administrative or major survey data. Sullivan's review found inconsistencies in the way sex and gender were recorded and conflated. Some official surveys were found to remove sex altogether and only collected information on gender identity. This included the Royal Navy Sexual Harassment Survey, which asked how respondents identified rather than asking them for their sex, despite the obvious relevance of the subject matter. It was sexual harassment. And they say, so this man's harassing this woman. And they said, what sex are you? And he says, I'm a woman. Oh, how can you then sexually harass? It makes a big difference in criminal cases, as you can see from that alone. In another case, a children's camping program raised safeguarding concerns through collecting data on gender identity with male, female, or other options available. So you didn't have to say whether you was male or female. You could just say other. Why is another? You're either male or female. You've either got a penis or a vagina. There is no in between. No. The review found that some surveys collected data only on gender, not sex. Some of those interviewed for the study said there was an hostile environment in raising the issues within their organisations, and Sullivan said that ministers should consider the vulnerability of government and public bodies to internal activism that seeks to influence outward-facing policy. She's talking about the civil service. She's talking about the administrators in hospitals and in schools who are changing the laws when they have no right to do so. Sullivan said the Office of National Statistics, now the Office of National Statistics is a government body, had radically changed how it viewed sex in terms of data collection and recommended that the UK Statistics Authority, which oversees the ONS, should consider launching a review of activism and impartiality within the civil service in relation to the production of official statistics. Now, civil service. Now, let me get this. Are they civil and are they a servant? Civil service. No. They're serving their own desires, their own ideology, their own weird woke ideas, and they're not civil about it. So it's a misnomer, isn't it, the civil service? But still, I've sort of gone off the subject a little bit. The rise in the conflation of sex and gender came amid a heightened level of influence over the public sector by outside bodies such as Stonewall, the homosexual body, the LGBT plus charity, and others. The Office of National Statistics, the ONS, also previously caused confusion by proposing respondents to the 2021 England and Wales census could answer the sex question in terms of their subjective gender identity rather than their true sex. He was later forced to change this through a judicial review, so the judges had to get involved to stop them doing it, to stop the civil servants doing their own thing. It is understood that the review has been circulated to all government departments by Peter Kyle, the Technology Secretary, with an acknowledgement that accurate data collection is essential. Sullivan said this should not be seen as a zero-sum game between characteristics. We can and should collect data on both sex and gender identity. Acknowledging sex does not erase gender identity or vice versa. I think it should do, but yeah, at least it's been there for debate. The review found that across the NHS National Health Service, gender identity is consistently prioritised over or replaces sex altogether. She said that records that traditionally represent biological sex were unreliable and could be altered on request by the patient, and that there had been a gradual shift away from recording and analysing sex in the National Health Service datasets. This meant there were clear clinical risks, such as patients not being called for cervical smear tests or prostrate exams, or there was misinterpretation of the laboratory results. Sullivan said this has potentially fatal consequences for trans people, because you're not going to send out a cervical smear test, if the person's down as a male. And you're not going to turn prostrate test if the person's claiming to be a female. And so they're not getting the tests that should be carried out. In one case, a paediatrician said that a child had been brought up in the preferred gender of the mother. Get that? The child had been brought up, raised by the mother in the preferred gender she wanted, not the one she got, which was different to the birth assigned gender. She, the mother, had gone to the GP, the general practitioner, the doctor, and requested a change of gender and National Health Service number when the baby was a few weeks old. So the child, never had a say in this matter. He or she was brought up in a different gender than the sex they were. Can you imagine what's happening to that child's mind? That's child cruelty, surely. The doctor said that the children's social care did not perceive this as a child protection issue. Well, they should have done. But then again, is the child protection social care run by woke administrators? The answer must be yes. Sullivan's review said the patient's ability to change their records put transgender individuals at a particular disadvantage, and as such is potentially discriminatory. She said that in some cases, samples such as blood tests could be rejected by laboratories, or sex-specific cancer referrals could be missed because they're not putting down the true and real sex. Now, who doesn't put down the true and real sex? Now, I'm going off my report here, but autistic people. Autistic people have been found to be a vast majority of cases of transsexuals, autism. And they go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and they are convinced, and they tell the psychiatrist, "Oh, I feel unusual. I don't feel right in my body." And these psychologists and psychiatrists, they say, "That's because you're not in the right body, are you?" And they convince them that they need a sex change. Once convinced, it's very hard for an autistic person to change. They accept. Very hard for them to change. And they're forced into it. Transvestites are different. Transvestites are people who dress up in the opposite sex's clothing for sexual exhilaration. I was searching for another word then, but they get a thrill from dressing up, but they still know that they are the sex they were born as. But transsexuals do not. They are confused, and the confusion has been used by these woke psychologists to tell them, you're not confused, you're in the wrong body, and they accept it. Very, very wrong. Very, very, very wrong. But we'll move on. We'll move on. I did digress, I know. Guidance notes for officers of the police, I've moved on to the police now, on the Police National Computer, PNC, state that it is quite possible that an arrested person who has acquired a gender recognition certificate and has not informed the police could be released or otherwise dealt with before any link to their previous offending history is known, through the confirmation of fingerprints, presumably. The review found that this is also likely to be true of those who self-declared a different sex and name. Now, it is illegal. It is illegal to tell the police, who have a rightful duty to ask you your name and sex. Lawful, I should say, not rightful, lawful. If they have a lawful reason to ask you for your name, it is illegal to give a false name, and it's illegal to give a false sex. But it seems they're doing it, according to this Police National Computer data. Let's move on to schools and education. In schools and universities, the review found that children and young adults were more likely to report being transgender, but that without biological sex being recorded, data that showed the different life outcomes, including earnings, could not be relied upon. The review said significant sex-based effects could either be missed because they were wrongly assumed to be due to changing practices in self-identification, or conversely wrongly inferred as the data has become impossible to read reliably for sex-based effects. The lack of reliable data is also found to have an impact on pay gap reporting. The UK public authorities and private sector employers with headcounts of 250 or more have been required by law to report annually on their gender pay gap, which records how much less a woman can earn than a man for the same job. Or not the same job, but the equivalent, where it's been assessed that the job outcome is equivalent. However, those who identify as non-binary are excluded from the data, and the gender identity is recorded rather than their sex. The gender identity is recorded rather than their sex. So it eschews everything, doesn't it? However, those who identify as non-binary are excluded from the data, and it has been argued that recording biological sex alongside gender identity could interfere with a person's human rights. So they assume that we have a human right to tell somebody, I'm a female when I'm a male, or I'm a male when I'm a female. I thought that was lying. I thought that was deceit. But human rights say no. This Human Rights Act from Europe, from the EU, is a debased, unfactual, stupid, silly law that's come from woke individuals intent on confusing the whole world. However, Sullivan found and presented legal advice to back it up, that recording sex as gender identity was in fact itself likely to breach the UK data laws and potential human rights laws. She said, there are things that statistics cannot do. Statistics are not a means of personal self-expression. They can neither validate or invalidate an individual's identity, and they cannot see into people's souls. I'll move on. Maya Forrester is the chief executive of the charity Sex Matters. She said the review was devastatingly clear about harms caused by carelessness with sex data and decade-long failure of the civil service to maintain impartiality and uphold data standards. Well, I agree, Maya Forrester. A government spokesman in response said, this government is clear. that the collection of accurate and relevant data is vital in research and the operation of effective public services, particularly when it comes to sex. We are grateful to Professor Sullivan for her work, which has been shared with relevant government departments and public organisations, including the Office of National Statistics. Well, you are grateful, so you say, but the problem is, when letters go out, as we're told the letter did go out to all the government departments, telling them to put sex back on and stop this nonsense of only gender that's created by the person themselves, who's self-delusional. The problem is, these letters are not acted upon. They go to the heads of departments who sit on them, and it's not acted upon. We've seen this with the police. I've seen a number of videos where so-called auditors, when people with cameras go around and they photograph the police and police stations and police cars. And police come out, question them, harass them, and actually search them and arrest them under the Terrorism Act. That's Section 47, or 43, sorry, or under PACE. They do all this. But the Police Chief Officers, the Police Chief Officers Council, they sent a letter round. They've sent it round twice, actually, in previous years, telling the police that it is quite legal for people to photograph police and police stations and police cars. And the letter has not gone round. It's not been circulated to police constables. It's not been circulated to police sergeants. Whether the inspectors get it, I have no idea. But they are not acting upon the instructions, even though the letter went out. Why? Because it's withheld. Governments can send out all this information to these government departments, but civil servants, as civil administrators, police administrators, hospital administrators, are keeping them to themselves and not passing it on. There's got to be a complete overhaul of what's going on. Will it ever happen? Who knows? But the point is, we need to know. We in the public need to know what's going on, and we need to speak up, as I'm doing right now. So thank you for watching. Thank you for staying all this way. It's been nearly 18 minutes that I've waffled on. I hope it's been informative. And what I say now is be safe, be good, and bye until the next one. Bye for now. Bye.